Hello and welcome to the Heat Check, the Miami Herald's Miami Heat Show. I'm David Wilson. I'm joined, sitting outside, joined though, as always, on the other line by Anthony Chang, our Heat beat writer here at the Herald. Anthony, how is Indianapolis?
It was not as nice as the place you're
I know
sitting
it
at
looks
right
really
now.
nice behind me. This is probably the nicest background I've ever had on this show. I'm sitting on FIU's campus, trying to squeeze in a quick episode. Found a nice little spot outside. A little windy, so apologize for any of the elements. I also need a haircut, so apologize for me
You're, you're
playing
like
this entire
you're like
episode.
Jaime,
I'm like
you're
Jaime
like Jaime
Hawkins.
Jaquez, yeah, in his dunks when he was like in the air in slow mo with the hair flowing. Kind of looks like that.
Anthony, we will get into some All-Star stuff in a little bit here, but first of all, we saved the Heat season, I think. We
Yeah,
came on here last Tuesday, I think it was, right? We recorded Tuesday. We said, oh, whatever, two games against the Bucks and Sixers. Jimmy Butler
no
didn't perform
Jimmy.
with no Jimmy
Yeah,
Butler. We were like, all right, like they'll lose these games or split these games and reset in the All-Star break and come back in the second half. And instead, they come out, get like their two best wins of the season, basically, on back-to-back nights. And all of a sudden, it just feels our big gripe with this team all year has been they haven't beaten any good teams, and they beat two good teams on back-to-back nights. Obviously, some extenuating circumstances, but still, they hadn't done anything like that all year, and for them to do it twice in a row right before the All-Star break, there's not really a negative spin you can put on it.
no, I mean they're 6-2 in their last eight
Yeah.
after that 7-game losing streak.
Yep.
Like you talk about, this team said all the right things, like, oh, we still believe we can, get better because of this adversity, which is kind of cliche, but it seems like they have. Like they're 6-2. They have some quality wins in there. Their two losses are against arguably the two best teams in the NBA, in the Clippers and Boston, right? I mean, and they fought hard in both, and they were shorthanded in both, and both came down to like the final minutes. So it's been that 8-game stretch has been a positive. They've gotten better. It helps when you shoot a high percentage from three. I'm looking right now. I think both those games and the break, the win in Milwaukee and the win in Philadelphia, they shot, let's see. Well, Milwaukee, they shot 47.5%, 43-point attempts, which is really, really good. The Philly one, they had to grind it out. It wasn't as pretty. They shot 31%, but their defense was really good. I think that's been the one constant, that the second best defense in the NBA during this 8-game stretch, which shouldn't be a surprise, but it kind of is considering how I was talking about this defense like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Just doesn't seem like they have the same personnel as they've had in previous years, but they always find a way. They still have Bam. They still have Jimmy when he's out there. Still have Caleb Martin, and solid defenders. And they have Spo, who will scheme his way to a top 10 defense pretty much every season. He needs a lot of zone, a lot of full court press falling into zone. So it just, they found ways to win. Does it mean that they're all of a sudden a championship contender again? No. But at this point, you just have to win games. If that means relying on zone, so be it. That means shooting 45 threes because Jimmy, Terry Rozier, and Josh Richardson are out, so be it. And they've done that. So still playing tournament territory. That'll be the challenge now or after the break to kind of get out of that, kind of move up the standings. But the last 8 games, it's really hard to find much to complain about.
Yeah, I think the like nice thing you can say about the Heat this year is they found a way to win a lot of different ways. Like you said, whether it's with zone, whether it's by just banging 43s. Obviously, we know there's like the Jimmy or bust method. So they're doing that, I think, and you need an identity, yes, and that's what's important from these last 8 games. They're finding this defense and make do, I guess, is maybe the way to like kind of describe what they're trying to do. But the other important thing is when you win a playoff series, you're very rarely going to win 4 games just playing
the same way.
Yeah. So the adversity, I mean, that's the cliche, but that is what adversity teaches you. It teaches you how to win a game because one night Duncan and Bam run the 2-man game really well, and you win a game because of that. One game, Tyler Hero wins you a game. One game Terry Rozier wins you a game. Like one game you win 87-84. Like so they that's the one positive I think you can really kind of take away from the first half of the season and the last 8 games in particular. Like they've found that if they're going to play, are they the number 2 defense in the league? Probably not. But if they're that top 5, top 10 defense from here to the end of the year, then the equation just becomes a lot simpler.
Yeah, I mean, if they're a top 8 defense and you expect Jimmy Butler to turn it up in the playoffs, right? And you expect the Heat's 3-point shooting to, every time the playoffs come around, their 3-point shooting becomes all world. Then you have a shot. That's what happened last year. Like, their defense was always pretty good last year. It was, again, good in the playoffs, but Jimmy was the difference that we've spoken about, where he turns into Michael Jordan. And they started making a high percentage of their threes in the playoffs. And that was, everyone asked, why was it so different in the postseason? What changed? Like, that was it pretty much. It wasn't really the defense. It was the offense, where everyone was running through Jimmy and the shooters made shots. So I think it's encouraging that you're seeing that defense again, that level of defense, because and we spoke about this when they were losing. To me, that was the most concerning aspect, because I never expected this offense to be top 10. If they're average, it's a win for this team. I think even during this stretch, like in the 6-2 stretch, they have the 19th ranked offense in the 6-2 stretch. So it's still been below average, but the defense is what needs to be at the very least top 10 for this team to have a shot. And they've gone back to that, which again, I think has been the most encouraging part of this stretch. And, they have some tough games after the break: New Orleans, Sacramento, Denver. Just in those first 4 games in that 4-game trip to start things off. So they'll be tested. But they've shown really good signs over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, the defense is the baseline, and that's been true of every season. So it's pretty much every season in the Jimmy Butler era. And so getting back to that, what, like you mentioned, a lot of zone. Obviously, we haven't seen Jimmy the last, for part of that stretch. But what is it? What from these 8 games do you maybe see? Are there things you see there that can kind of take this team through the last 25 games or whatever it is of the regular season?
On defense or on offense or both?
Mostly on defense, but I guess on both ends of the floor.
Well, this defense is at its best when it's forcing turnovers. It needs to kind of cause chaos. I think Cooper Moorhead of Heat.com always puts out this stat of on possessions where there isn't an opponent turnover, like their defensive rating is not good. So they kind of need to force turnovers to be a good defense. That's a big part of what they do, is causing chaos and being disruptive. And during this 8-game stretch, they have the 5th highest opponent turnover rate. So they've gone back to that. During that losing skid, they weren't forcing many turnovers, which was a big problem. But they've gone back to being that disruptive unit. And I think that is something they need to, like, that's not an option for them. Like, if they don't do that, if they're not forcing turnovers at an elite rate, they're at best probably going to be an average defense, because that's just not, they're built to be disruptive. So that's one thing I always look to, like when I'm looking at a box score after the game, like how the defense played. Obviously points and all that, defense already matters. But usually when they force a high amount of turnovers, that means it's a good night for them on the defensive end.
Okay, let's switch gears over to the All-Star game, then we'll wrap up with a little bit of a kind of like more of a preview of these last 25 games. And the big Heat edition, Delan Wright, one that Anthony called on the show last week, who I think fits with a lot of what we are talking about with what this team trying to build an identity. He certainly fits a lot of that. But you were in Indianapolis. First of all, how many shots did you get up in the airport?
I did not. I thought about it, but everyone was just kind of taking pictures under the basket. So
were there balls out there?
I didn't actually see any. I didn't look hard enough. Maybe there were.
You didn't bring your own?
But it was right in them. I don't think there were, because it wasn't even like roped off. Like, it was just like in the middle of the airport. So if there was like balls bouncing all over the place, like that would have been probably a hazard. So I don't think there were, but it was kind of cool just to have like literally just like in the middle of the airport, it's like a basketball court. So yeah, that was pretty neat.
So like obviously that was for the All-Star game, but it also fits the Indiana thing. Like, they honestly should probably just leave that there permanently, because like that's like, because it's like Indiana, it's the basketball state. What would the Miami equivalent be of a basketball hoop in the middle of the?
A huge cafetera, espresso maker that you could like climb up and go inside. I don't know.
How about the Orleans home run statue? Let's just move that to the airport.
That'd be cool. I don't know if that would fit, but that'd be cool.
I guess like a fake beach would be probably the.
Just like sand.
And like like chairs. When they like at like F1 when they like do like the like little. fake Hollywood beach or whatever that they do there. I think, they obviously at the Miami airport, they do have like a Versailles, right? And a La Carreta. But like if they did an actual one that like kind of looked like a Ventanita in like the middle of there we go. That would
That's a
be
good one.
very Miami.
Like an installation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Like one that like it's in the middle of the airport, I guess, rather than just like it blends in with the other concession stands.
How about something with like golf? Like
do that too.
Like a
pickleball court.
Yeah.
That's at the Naples airport, I guess.
Yeah. We should get to
national.
Before we have to get into this, but before that, we should maybe get a SkyTrain working at MIA. That would be
that's true.
Start.
That airport has plenty of other problems to sort out, I guess.
Maybe we should start. Maybe we should start with that first.
Okay, All-Star game. I don't know. Let's go day by day through the weekend. Obviously, a lot of Jaime Jaquez time.
Yeah.
A lot of quality time for you with Jaime Jaquez. Was in the I don't even know what the Rising Stars Challenge.
Rising Stars.
What they call it now, because there's obviously G League guys and all that kind of involved. And then the next day in the dunk contest, I didn't see any of the Rising Star stuff. Anything interesting from that night? Or should we just move right to the dunk contest?
No, I mean, there was it was a good night for Alonnis Williams, I would say. The new Heat two-way contract player. He was on the G League team that beat Jaime Jaquez's team, which Jaime Jaquez's team was like the most talented one of the four.
Was there a rule in the G League? Like, did you have to be under a certain age still, or was it just anyone in the G League got to play?
That's a good question. I'm not totally sure. I feel like it was pretty much anybody in the G League could play if they chose you.
Yeah, because Alonnis has been around for a couple of years now, right?
This is his second year.
Second year? So either way, he would have been eligible.
Yeah, I mean, Cole Swider was in the G League All-Star game, but he wasn't in Rising Stars. Trying to think who else was there that was notable. There was a Kentucky guard, I forget his name, that was on the Rising Stars. But anyway, they beat Victor Wembanyama and Jaime Jaquez's team, which was a huge upset. I mean, you could just tell the G League guys wanted it. Like they were trying very hard. Like they had something to prove by winning that game. So yeah, Jaime Jaquez didn't have it was fine, but it wasn't like a big night for him. But I think Alonnis had 14 points in that game, which is a lot considering that I think the target score was 30. So he basically had half the team's points in that first game against. And he went right at, I don't know if you saw the highlight, David, but he went right at Wembanyama for an and one layup, made it over, completed a 3-point play with a free throw, and then made a corner three with Wemby right in front of him with his arms right in his face, and he hit it. So he had some good moments, and it was good for him to kind of, do something on that stage.
All right, let's move on to the dunk contest, because that was the most interesting part of the weekend, I think, for the Heat, even if the actual dunk contest didn't end up being super interesting. You wrote about Jaime Jaquez off the dunk contest, some of the stuff he did, specifically to kind of honor some of his Mexican heritage this weekend. Just what did you? You got obviously a lot of time around him this weekend. What? Just give us some of this behind the scenes of the dunk contest, and you can spin it out, I guess, a little bit to his whole weekend there. But the dunk contest, obviously, jumping over Shaq. That's a good prop. I'm curious how that came together, all that kind of stuff. What do you get from behind the scenes there?
Yeah, I think both of his dunks had some meaning, and I honestly think I'm not saying he should have won the contest because obviously Mac McClung is. He's pretty special when it comes to dunking. Yeah, it's like he's jumping on a trampoline almost when he gets up.
That Jaylen Brown was kind of so underwhelming that I feel like Mac McClung, who, he's not like the Levine,
right.
Aaron Gordon is kind of the gold standard of the last decade. Not quite there, but he's pretty good. He's a very deserving champion.
Yeah, for sure. And but I thought Jaime his first dunk over Shaq. It received a lower score than Jaylen Brown's, where he dunked over a guy sitting on the chair. So it was just I didn't get some of the scoring, but whatever. But I think Jaime's dunks they both had meaning. They're the first one he made on the first attempt, which again was really important. I think as we talked about, you can't be missing dunks that always makes things look worse. The second dunk he made on the second attempt, so only he missed one of his two dunk attempts. But I think that was cool because they both had meaning. The Shaq one, you mentioned it. There was a viral video, which I'm guessing was planted for a reason, the week before the dunk contest. But of him when he was a kid, he must have been 2 or 3 years old, with one of those, small kid balls with the little hoop. The what do you call it? I have one in the backyard actually for my daughter.
Like a
One of those
Fisher
little
Price hoop.
Fisher
or
Price hoop,
yeah.
exactly. And he's
You get a lot
dunking
of
it.
shots up on that one, I'm sure.
Yeah, and he's done. Yeah, I do actually.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not joking.
That's the only time I shoot a basketball these days. And he was dunking on it, and it seems like his mom was kind of asking him in the video, like, "You're dunking? Who are you dunking like?" He's like, "I'm dunking like Shaq. I'm dunking like Shaq." So they played that video on this LED court, which kind of got lost in everything because like on TV they were like commenting on other stuff while the video was playing, so like nobody at home could kind of see.
Yeah,
what
I didn't know it happened.
Yeah,
I saw people like talking about it.
Like I honestly don't think the broadcast did the dunk contest much justice.
No,
like
they like missed a whole dunk.
They missed a lot.
Dunk, actually, the Jacob Toppin dunk that like wasn't on TV. It was pretty good.
Yeah, like I was weird. Like they didn't like that was on the court for a reason. There was meaning behind it. And then he dunked over Shaq, so it was kind of like a full circle moment as Jaime described it. And the second one, again, I don't think they even like showed it much on TV. It was kind of like in the background, but the names of the 5 Mexican citizens that played in the NBA before Jaime were put on the court, and then the paint had the Mexican flag in it, and he did his dunk, with a jersey that said Hico Dura, which is a 1-of-1 jersey. They don't even
I was gonna say I wasn't sure if that was a special edition that I was unaware of, but no, they don't have that. They're gonna have to sell
something
those.
New. Apparently, they're not selling it. They started that night. They put on for sale a hoodie with that on it.
A hoodie with
t-shirt,
it, gotcha.
But they're not going to sell their jersey as of now.
Interesting.
So there was like a lot of
some of that merch. Go ahead.
Yeah. There was a lot of creativity behind his dunks, meaning behind his dunks, which I thought was cool. He put some effort into it. And again, like his dunks were they like sensational, like all timers? No, but they were good dunks. But yeah, it ended early. He wasn't. He didn't make it past the first round. And honestly, like if you would have told me who's going to make it to the final round, I'm not going to say it was fixed, but I'm sure most people wanted to see Jaylen Brown against Mac McClung. Like that just made sense, and that's what.
Yeah, I'll say like Jaylen Brown has caught a lot of flack, and deservingly so. I've got piled on, but credit to him just for doing it. Like,
for
sure.
We
haven't seen an all-star do it in a long time. So, did you talk to Jaime about how? I mean, Shaq obviously is always game for these, but I'm curious, like what that conversation was like to get him involved, and obviously he's a Heat guy too, a little bit. So,
well, obviously
he all about it.
He wanted to do the Shaq thing because of the video, because of the connection with the video, but he told me, I don't know like when he told him exactly. I'm guessing Shaq knew somewhat beforehand, but he told me when he was practicing the dunk, he did it with Bam there, so that when he saw Shaq and actually like put Shaq there,
that's an extra like 4 inches.
Yeah, he's like I got nervous. Like I was like, I don't know if I could clear him. He's like, I know how tall Shaq is, but like I didn't realize how high I was gonna have to jump to clear him because I was practicing with Bam, which is a big difference. He's like, I kind of got nervous and I kind of I didn't expect it to be, that challenging. But he did it. He had to put his hand on his back, like that old like not pushing off, but like kind of like holding himself a little bit, and
still better than jumping over a chair. Yeah.
Shaq kind of ducked a little bit. So
if you cleanly clear Shaq, it's like an all timer.
Right. Yeah, but I think he wanted to do it because of the video when he was
obviously,
and also. Again, I don't know if Shaq found out like that night or if he knew like the day before.
Yeah, I mean he's not the first person to jump over Shaq. I think Shaq knows he's on call at the dunk contest. There have been
especially when he's there.
Shaq.
Yeah, especially when he's there with like a camera doing that thing for TNT. Like he's obviously gonna be used as a prop by some players.
All right. Anything from the All-Star game? Obviously, huge win for our Eastern Conference All-Stars.
Man,
Eastern Conference
I just found it. Baby. I just found it amazing. Like it's almost like a mathematical riddle that Bam Adebayo, and this is really no fault of his own because nobody passes him the ball.
He scored what 222
211 points.
211 points.
He had as a starting center. He had 3 points on 2 shots, the lowest among every player in the All-Star game for both of those categories. He didn't, and he made a joke about it after. He's like, I gotta get teammates to pass me the ball. It's just a game that's just not for him. He's a defensive-minded guy who
it's like
rolls to the basket and like
when Rudy Gobert is in the All-Star game. It's like nobody wants to see that.
Yeah, as much as I love Bam and like I thought he would be a little bit more. Like I actually asked him beforehand, like the day before at media day. I said, "You're gonna be more aggressive. Like your first 2 appearances, I think you got like 10 total points or 9 total points or something like that. Like, you're gonna do a little more. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna look for my own shot this time. Finish with 3 points and 2 shots. And his only make was memorable. He bounced it off Jokic's back on the inbounds, got the ball, and then dribbled into like a pull-up three, which is, Heat fans go crazy over any Bam Adebayo three. Now, like, one shot sparked the whole conversation for days. Like, should Spo be letting Bam shoot threes? Like, one shot.
Should Spo be letting Bam throw the ball off guys' back?
Right. It's like, it's an all-star game, guys. It's one shot. It's like he went like 9 of 10 on threes, But yeah, I mean, we know that Bam, like, his mechanics are smooth. Like, it looks natural whenever he shoots a three. It doesn't look clunky. So it looked nice, but it was a pretty quiet night for Bam, I would say, all things considered.
I got a fix for the Bam type players in the All-Star game.
What?
You can designate one guy on each team he can't score, but he can goaltend all he wants.
That's fun. That'd be cool.
That way, like, Rudy Gobert,
Wemby would be amazing at that.
Yeah. Just like get some real, like, crazy highlight reel blocks that are very illegal.
My question is, Wemby is so good on offense too.
I know, that's a problem.
When he's an all-star, would you designate him as that guy and lose him on offense, or would you not? That'd be interesting question.
Yeah.
But we probably will never have to discuss.
I'll bring it up with next time I see Adam.
Do that.
Okay, let's wrap up by quickly looking ahead to the second half of the season, which is really like a quarter of the season. But Heat get Delan Wright. I guess we'll start there. As I mentioned, I asked you at the end of the last episode because we were talking about the point guard. We thought maybe it was going to be a 10-day guy to fill in while Terry Rozier's hurt. The one guy you mentioned who you thought if maybe the one reason not to go with a 10-day contract was if you could get a guy like Delan Wright. You specifically mentioned the Heat go get him off the buyout market. As I said at the top, feels like a fit with a lot of what they're trying to kind of establish as their identity, as they're always trying to establish their identity. You obviously mentioned a little bit last week about why you like him, but now that deal is official, what do you like about this pickup for the Heat?
It just makes a lot of sense. There's really not much not to like about it. I think it's like a low risk, high reward type of pickup. You sign him at the minimum for the rest of the season. He's a guy like Kevin Love who can possibly re-sign here. Like, he has connections here. His brother Delan Wright started his career here. It's Miami. Miami's always a contending team. Like, he could be a guy that is here for the next few seasons as well. And he just fits. He's a really good point of attack defender. He's one of the best in the NBA, even though he doesn't play as much. Like, per 36 at deflections, steals, which again we talked about earlier in the podcast, or earlier in the episode, is important to this defense. Like, forcing turnovers and being disruptive, and he fits that. And I think he'll play at least for now because he's almost like the perfect guy to slide into the minutes that Josh Richardson was playing. And Jay Rich is probably going to be out at least 2, 3, 4 more weeks, maybe a month. And who knows what Jay Richardson will look like when he gets back. He's a dislocated shoulder. Like, a lot of times guys need surgery on that after the season. So he's going to be playing not at 100%, even if he does return. And Delan Wright, like, he's not the best offensive player, but one impressive number is he has 82 assists and 11 turnovers this season. So that's a really good assist turnover ratio. He takes care of the ball, doesn't turn it over much, can like run the offense when needed. He's not a high volume 3-point shooter, so I don't know how much he'll space the floor, but I think he's never averaged more than 2.7 3-point attempts per game. So again, in this day and age, that's a very low volume, but he shoots at a decent rate. So we'll see if he can maybe scale up his volume a little bit and keep it like at 36, 37%. If he can do that, provide that defense, which this team needs, especially with some of the guys they have out, he's going to help. He's going to help probably immediately, especially, with Jay Rich and probably Terry Rozier out, at least to start the break. Start this, games again after the break.
Yeah, it can go on the ball and off the ball, which is, if he's off the ball a little bit more than he has been, then those 3-point numbers can maybe go up, and obviously on the ball, you mentioned that assist to turnover ratio is pretty good as a placeholder point guard. Like, come playoff time, is he going to have the ball in his hands a lot?
No.
Probably not. But like you said, to get through this little stretch here, and if Tyler Hero goes, like, when he went out in the playoffs, it opened up a lot of ball handling minutes. So they've so many guys who are useful ball handlers that when one guy goes out, you can fill it a bunch of different ways, and he's just another option.
He's also 6'5", right? So he's like he can guard wings if needed. He's not like the biggest like as far as girth, but he's long enough, tall enough where he can guard up when needed. So it's not like just guarding, a point guard. So I just think he fits with a lot of what the Heat like to do. And now, I mean, you look at what they've done in the past month, pretty much. Like you trade away a disgruntled point guard who really wasn't shooting the ball and really wasn't doing much for you. At least in the last few weeks of his Heat tenure, his productivity had really gone down. And you in return get Terry Rozier, who was helping you and when he was healthy before he hurt his knee, and now you have Delan Wright, who's also fits a need. So I feel like before it was like what point guards do they have on the roster? They're really thin at point guard. Now, if when Terry Rozier comes back and eventually when Josh Richardson gets back, they have a lot of like playable guards. So they're in a much better spot than they were just a month ago.
Yeah, they're really. I think we even talked about it last week. They're really deep all of a sudden.
Yeah,
even deeper now. So, the last 26 games, or I think it is 20 something like that.
27 games. Yeah.
It's all about kind of putting these pieces together now and figuring out what your mix looks like come playoff time and who can fill what roles on what given night. Because obviously we know. Spo, even when he only feels like 9 playable guys, he's figuring out ways to use 11 different guys in a series, and now they're easily in the double figures with like competent, more than like average plus NBA players. It feels like.
I mean, with the way Jovic has played when given the opportunity.
Yeah, Jovic is kind of the X factor in there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, which is another conversation probably for another episode. But he played really well before the break when he started those 2 games. They have probably 13 guys who have no argument to be in the rotation. I guess not counting like Thomas Bryant at this point and Orlando Robinson, because you're in a good spot at center with Bam and Kevin Love. But other than that, you pretty much have 13 guys who like you can make a convincing argument that they should be in the 9-man rotation, which is a good thing, I guess. It's a good thing and like great problem to have, but it's going to be a challenge if this team is healthy. Well, it's a big if. For Eric Spoelstra to kind of narrow down the rotation, because he'll play like 10 or 11 guys in over the course of a series, but for the most part, he's going to play like 8 guys in the playoffs big minutes. He's not going to play 10 guys for double-digit minutes. That's not going to happen. So it's like, does Haywood Highsmith get kicked out of the rotation? Is it either Josh Richardson or Delan Wright? Does Jovic get minutes?
That's what I feel like it probably winds up being, right? Richardson or Wright, but it lets you ride a hot hand a little bit. Like even that, just having an extra
or matchups.
Or matchups,
right? Like if you're facing Jalen Brunson, you need a really good point of attack defender. Maybe that's Delan Wright's series.
Yeah.
So, the good thing is he has a lot of ways he can go. It's like you said earlier. This team's strength is they can win games in a lot of different ways, but the foundation of it is the defense. If the defense isn't good, they usually do not have the offense to win games against good opponents. This defense has to be at least top 10 each game, like to have a chance to win games. And again, they've gone back to that since that losing streak.
And Wright only bolsters that.
Yeah.
On paper, at least. We'll see what it looks like once they get back in action on Friday. Any other kind of final thoughts on the second half before we close out here?
That two-game winning streak to end the pre-All-Star break schedule, I think was really big because this upcoming trip is going to be tough.
It's hard. Yeah, we talked about it last week.
If they can go 2-2 on this trip and you come out of this 6-game stretch at 4-2, I mean, there's not much. Like at the start of the stretch, I think you and I said 2-4 would be like decent. I guess you're just surviving. If you can go 4, you already have 2 wins.
Yeah, you've already got 2 out of this. Yeah.
If you can get 4-2, just go 2-2, which is 2. I mean, they have Portland, and then probably not going to win the Denver game at the end. That's a schedule loss. But if you could beat either Sacramento with 2 days off in between, or the Pelicans, which is not an easy game, but it's a winnable game, especially after you've had a week to rest. It's realistic, and again, they're still in 7th spot. They're still fighting for their lives and not being in the play-in. But their schedule softens up after this stretch. So I think this next week is going to be important for them if they really want to kind of get themselves out of this little play-in territory. They got to get a couple here over the next week.
All right, we'll close things out there. I'm getting a little chilly in this wind, so you follow Anthony on Twitter.
So aren't you? Didn't you go to Syracuse? Like, what is this?
I know.
So you got soft.
I can follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony_Chang. I can follow me on Twitter at DBWilson2. Anthony, I covered a hockey game last night. Back on the Panthers beat a little bit.
The best team in the best team.
They're really good. I mean, they didn't even play well last night, and they still won. So, yeah, they're the Heat are good. I think we'll see. The Panthers are really good. They look like they'll be right back in the mix for the Cup again this year. So, maybe we'll bring back the Panthers minute as we get toward playoff time.
Let's do it.
They got their trade deadline coming up, so it'll be interesting to see if they make a move. Anyway, thanks again for listening, and we will talk to you guys next week.